My name is Nicole, and I'm a 34-year-old hairdresser. I've been honing my skills as the chief stylist at the salon owned by my husband Michael, who's just a few years older than me. Our story began through a mutual connection, and I was instantly drawn to Michael's warm and approachable demeanor. 4 years ago, we sealed our bond in marriage. However, there's a significant player in our lives. My husband's mother, Victoria. Divorced during Michael's junior high years, she proudly raised him single-handedly. While I admire her strength, Victoria's unwavering belief in her authority over Michael's life can be suffocating. When we tied the knot, she insisted on asserting her opinions on everything from the wedding arrangements to our choice of honeymoon destination and even the decor of our new home. I had my own dreams for our special moments like the wedding ceremony and honeymoon, not to mention our future abroad. Yet whenever I dared to voice my desires, Victoria swiftly shut them down. Even Michael's attempts to mediate were met with her firm assertion of dominance, often accompanied by the reminder of her role as his mother. It's like tossing pearls before swine, as the saying goes. You don't need such an extravagant wedding dress. Honestly, if you're behaving like this now, I shudder to think about our future together. What kind of upbringing did your parents give you? With those words, she not only dismissed my preferences but also insulted my parents. It left me anxious about what lay ahead. My parents, ever the voice of reason, suggested, take a moment to reconsider. I'm deeply sorry for my mother's intrusion. Her behavior was uncalled for, but I am committed to building a happy family with Nicole. I'll do whatever it takes. Please will you bless our union? Michael's apology was sincere, and in that moment, both my parents and I felt assured that he would stand by me in the years to come, and so we decided to proceed with the marriage. From the wedding ceremony to our new home, every decision was dictated by my mother-in-law's preferences. At home, my own mother advised, sometimes it's best to concede now for a better future. I understand you're trying to maintain harmony with your mother-in-law, but by yielding now, you're actually positioning yourself to collect on her debt in the future, leveraging her advice. Reluctantly, I acquiesced, but now, 4 years later, I rue that decision more deeply than the ocean and loftier than the mountains. Michael, can we discuss something about work? I have a junior chamber meeting tonight. Yesterday was a shopping district gathering, and today's another meeting. Last week was filled with dinners and social events. When do we have time to sit down and talk? Isn't every event part of your business? I'm not criticizing. You sound like you're complaining. Now that we have 3 stores, it's only logical that we discuss various aspects of management, isn't it? I've entrusted everything regarding the stores to you, Nicole. Your one commendable trait, without any formal education or prestigious family background, is your talent as a hairdresser. Thus, it's only natural for you to focus on boosting sales, right? So, why do you act like you need my input? Doesn't that seem odd? Here we go again. 4 years have passed since we launched our hair salon business from scratch. With the successful opening of our 3rd store and plans for a 4th by year-end, it's a significant milestone. However, as our business expands and Michael garners praise as a young entrepreneur, he increasingly regards me with disdain. I can handle him commenting on my education and background, but his constant belittling, criticizing everything from my appearance to my fashion sense, and even comparing me to rival stylists is just too much. What's worse, if I have to postpone a task he's asked for or don't respond to his messages right away, he gives me the silent treatment. During these times, he stays out late, disregards the meals I've prepared, and ostentatiously opts for takeout or convenience store sandwiches and coffee. He spends more time at his mother's place, even taking baths there. At first, I didn't know how to break through his silence. I kept cooking and preparing everything as if he would come home hungry and tired, even though I knew he wouldn't. I'd stay up late, anxiously waiting for him to return, uncertain of when he'd be back. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law would launch her verbal attacks. I always knew you weren't good enough for Michael, but I never imagined you'd be this incompetent. Why is he ignoring me? What have you done? Do you really have no idea? It's unbelievable. Are you mad at me for something I did? If Michael told you something, please tell me. It's pointless to talk to someone who's clueless about their own flaws, isn't it? With a laugh, she leaves me without an answer, after enduring his silent treatment for a while, just when I'm about to lose my patience. I'm home. Oh, I'm starving. What's on the menu tonight? He strolls in casually, as if nothing had happened earlier. I'm relieved he's speaking to me, but deep down, I dread being ignored again. Unconsciously, I find myself bending over backward to please Michael, catering to his every mood. It wasn't until Rebecca, a new stylist who joined the company this spring, pointed it out to me one day that I realized the extent of it all. That particular day, Michael was, as usual, ignoring me, skipping meals and remaining silent. Not wanting the food I had prepared to go to waste, I packed his leftovers into a lunchbox and brought it to the store. While I was eating it for lunch, Rebecca approached me. "Hey, Nicole, did you make that lunchbox yourself?" Yeah. It's just some leftovers from yesterday, though. I don't mean to pry into personal matters, especially as a newcomer, but do you realize that Michael seems to be controlling you? What do you mean by control? What are you getting at? I might be overstepping, but isn't Michael completely ignoring you right now? Yeah, he is. I had a feeling something was off. I noticed him chatting and laughing with everyone else in the staff room but completely ignoring you. And that incident where he rudely brushed off your hand when nobody was looking, it was clear as day. And then there's that lunchbox, filled with just grilled mackerel and meat and potatoes. It's obvious you just packed last night's dinner leftovers, right? It's a far cry from your usual colorful, well-balanced lunches. After Rebecca's observations, memories of my mother's similar experiences flooded back. She went through the same ordeal before divorcing my biological father. Hearing Rebecca's story, I learned that her parents split during her freshman year of high school, with her father often subjecting her mother to the same silent treatment as Michael. It all began with trivial things, gradually escalating until it seemed like a switch had been flipped, and he completely shut her out. My mother endured countless tears. I see. In time, she began seeking my father's approval in everything, her once bright smile turning submissive. It was agonizing to witness. Rebecca explained that Michael's silent treatment was a tactic to control me, leaving me worried and insecure while he maintained a position of dominance, smirking all the while. Think about it. In a healthy relationship, if your partner is upset, you'd be concerned and hurt too. But people like Michael, they actually relish in seeing their partner distressed and vulnerable. It's sickening. After Rebecca's candid insight, I found myself losing the urge to panic as I once did, even amidst Michael's moodiness and his habit of ignoring me or my mother-in-law's persistent prodding. Instead, viewing the situation through that lens, I began to see only Michael's immaturity, his overwhelming self-centeredness, and my mother-in-law's unrelenting malice, with no attempts to rein him in. But it seemed they didn't appreciate my newfound perspective. The chilling silence from both Michael and my mother-in-law gradually became routine. He scarcely came home anymore, and when he did, he'd seclude himself in his room. He stopped appearing at both the store and the company, leaving me to handle everything alone. Then, on a day like any other, a rare day off for the store, I decided to thoroughly clean our house for the first time in ages. Usually I relied on the Roomba and Brava, but with the pleasant weather, I figured I'd tackle every nook and cranny for a change. Lost in thought, I began wiping the windows while my favorite music played from my smartphone. That's when Michael and my mother-in-law silently entered the house, unlocking the door with a click as they settled onto the living room sofa. As my husband and mother-in-law sat there, I decided to quickly brew some tea. What an inconsiderate wife you are. But can't we bid farewell to this type of wife soon? It'll be a breath of fresh air. That's what they remarked as I reluctantly prepared the tea and set it on the sofa table, feeling bewildered. You see, Michael is expecting a child now, so it's time for you to step aside and make a swift exit. We'll give you a grace period of about 2 weeks to vacate this apartment. And naturally, you'll need to resign from your job as well, without any severance pay, of course. That's what they declared. Michael is having a child? Does that mean he's been unfaithful? And I'm being asked to leave. I'm losing my job with no severance pay either. Though we were in a silent standoff as a couple, my mind raced with questions upon hearing this sudden news, struggling to process it all. The next wife will be quite different from you. She hails from a wealthy family, graduated from a prestigious women's college, and then trained in the beauty capital, Paris. You simply can't compete with her, so it's best to accept it now. She's 3 months pregnant, and I'm eager to provide her with security as my wife soon. Indeed, I'm looking forward to it. Without a doubt, a wonderful child will be born. They uttered whatever they please. So, if she's 3 months pregnant, does that mean the child is a product of infidelity? Yeah, and? Emily and I just met in the wrong order. We were truly connected by the red thread of fate. So, you want me to leave because you want to marry your supposed soulmate now? That's been the gist of it. You're a bit slow on the uptake. As I watched Michael and my mother-in-law's nonchalant demeanor, a headache began to throb at my temples. Finally, I mustered the strength to request some time alone to contemplate, asking them to leave. It seems it takes time to grasp things with a scattered mind like yours. We understand, they replied before retreating to my mother-in-law's quarters. Left alone, I found myself unable to resume cleaning and instead sank onto the floor. Yet amidst the dimness, I noticed my smartphone's screen illuminating with an incoming call. It was from Rebecca. Rebecca? Oh, Nicole, are you at home right now? Yeah, I am. With my brief response, Rebecca announced she was on her way over and promptly ended the call. About half an hour later, Rebecca arrived, her hands full with bulging eco bags. Sorry for barging in. I grabbed some random food and drinks for us, she announced cheerfully. After excusing herself to wash her hands, she swiftly arranged the deli food she brought onto the table. She fetched glasses from the kitchen, poured some craft beer, her newfound favorite, and declared, "Let's dig in before it gets cold," while handing me a spoon. Following her lead, I began to eat, savoring the fluffy omelette rice that filled my mouth. Tasty, isn't it? This place makes fantastic omelette rice, she remarked with a bright smile. I've brought a variety of things, so please take your time and enjoy them. It dawned on me that I had only had coffee and bread for breakfast, hardly constituting a proper meal. Despite being emotionally numb until then, hunger gnawed at me. It was a realization that struck me for the first time. We ate in silence for a while, and as we began to sip our beer, Rebecca brought up the safety group email from the boss, mentioning my departure from the store at the end of the month. I confided in her about my mother-in-law and Michael's demand for a divorce, followed by my decision to resign from the store. Rebecca fell silent for a moment upon hearing my response, but then she looked me straight in the eyes and asked, "What do you want, Nicole? I mean, what do you truly desire? Not what they dictate you should do. It's your life, Nicole. You're the one who decides which path to take. You should steer towards what you want." Those words from Rebecca brought an unexpected clarity to my heart. Let's get a divorce. There's not a single reason why I should remain with Michael and his family. I want a divorce. I want to start afresh, I replied resolutely. Michael had given me a 10-day grace period, but once I set my plans in motion, everything proceeded smoothly. With few personal belongings, I swiftly packed them into boxes provided by the moving company. I entrusted Rebecca with handling my belongings at the store, preferring not to face Michael until everything was settled. Simultaneously, I engaged a lawyer recommended by an acquaintance to draft documents demanding alimony and property division from Michael. After several property viewings, I signed a contract for a new place. Once the move was complete, I had the lawyer send documents to my mother-in-law. Shortly after the letter arrived, my inbox flooded with line messages and emails from both my mother-in-law and Michael. Deciding to address matters formally, I proposed a meeting at the lawyer's office. As I waited at the lawyer's office, my mother-in-law, Michael, and a young woman entered, all wearing smug smiles. When the lawyer inquired about the woman's identity, my mother-in-law spoke up, introducing her as Emily, who would soon become Michael's wife after our divorce. They appeared delighted. Unfazed, I simply asked if they would agree to our demands. Without hesitation, they agreed, viewing it as severance payment. "Consider it compensation for your future," Michael added kindly. They handed over the specified amount in cash, sealed in a bank envelope. I completed my section of the divorce papers, stamped them, and handed them over, bringing the process to an end. As we parted ways, I made it clear that I would not assist them in any way in the future, no matter what happened. "So, this is your last desperate plea." "Okay, get it, you're upset. No need for the sarcasm," Emily retorted before they all exited the office, laughing. These days, I'm thriving as a top stylist at a bustling salon in the city center. Rebecca, who's been by my side since last month, is the same Rebecca who helped me see the truth during that crucial moment at the lawyer's office. I wasted no time in finding a new job, leveraging my past accolades and online recognition to secure a position swiftly. Thanks to this, I can live comfortably without relying on the consolation money or property division. Plus, I've started seeing someone I met at a joint training session with the sister store of my current workplace. Each day feels remarkably liberating and stress-free. So, When's the next date? Hey, don't tease your elders. Rebecca stayed on at Michael's salon for a while after I left. Ultimately, I convinced her to quit immediately. My decision was twofold: to safeguard Rebecca's reputation as a newcomer, avoiding any perception of impatience or lack of cooperation, and to shield her from any potential targeting by Michael and his mother, knowing she was still my friend. Reluctantly, Rebecca remained at the salon, and from what she's told me, the aftermath of Michael, his mother, and Emily was akin to a roller coaster drama. Emily strutted into the salon after my divorce, brimming with confidence as the new top stylist and field manager, but her reign was short-lived, lasting only a single day. The male staff member who had previously worked under me turned out to be Emily's classmate. Unaware of this, Emily made a grand entrance at the salon, accompanied by Michael, boasting about her Parisian training. "Wow, Emily, I thought you must be some extraordinary talent since you claim to have returned from Paris. But here you are," Thomas remarked. Thomas, what are you doing here?" Emily asked, taken aback. "I could ask you the same. I'm genuinely surprised. You were always struggling with the written tests, constantly getting reprimanded by the teacher. How did you, Emily, who barely made it through, end up in Paris?" "That's not true, is it?" "Don't make up stories, Thomas," Emily countered defensively. Well, don't you need a French hairstylist license to work in Paris? When did you suddenly become fluent in French like a native speaker?" Thomas persisted. "Well, I studied at university, didn't I?" "University? Wow," Emily replied, somewhat flustered. The Emily who once claimed to struggle with English during elective French conversations at beauty school found her disguise completely unraveling. A heated argument ensued between Emily, Michael, and Emily's mother-in-law, who rushed onto the scene. Things escalated, leading to a call to the police. The ensuing chaos prompted staff members to leave one by one, draining the salon of its vitality. Customers began to trickle away, and soon, the business hit rock bottom. Forced to shut down 2 of their stores, they attempted to salvage what they could at the original location, but it was too little too late. Last month, they were forced to close down completely. That must have been incredibly challenging. It was, but because of that, I was able to present my departure from the company as due to business circumstances, making the job interview process here much smoother. I'm glad we're working together again, but why did you choose this salon? Naturally, it's to learn directly from Nicole's expertise. Got it. I'll make sure to train you thoroughly. Sometime after Rebecca changed jobs, a letter arrived from Michael and his mother, delivered through the lawyer handling our divorce. It seemed they had no other means to reach me after I severed all communication, and even my parents staunchly refused contact. The letter droned on about how they had been duped by Emily, revealing that she wasn't pregnant after all, and that her entire background was fabricated. Emily had absconded with everything valuable, leaving Thomas in the lurch shortly after they lost the salon and the apartment they had used as collateral. The letter concluded with a plea for my help, painting me as their only hope in their time of need. After skimming through the letter, I promptly called the lawyer who had passed it on to me. "Please just let them know I'm not interested. There's no need to relay any more messages from them." And so, as Rebecca had assured me before, my life, charted in the direction I desired, was flourishing. I vowed never to allow another man to dictate my fate. Ever since my husband's company found its footing, he morphed into a stranger. His affair with another woman became brazen, as if he didn't care about hiding it anymore. When I confronted him, he dismissed my concerns with a mocking laugh. "You're worthless, living off my earnings. Be thankful I even bother with you," he spat, his contempt oozing with every word. "Get a job if you're so unhappy." Defiant, I accepted his challenge. Landing a position at his family's company, I plotted my retaliation against Michael. I'm Karen, once content as a 34-year-old homemaker, while Michael, my 36-year-old husband, managed a printing business. Our romance sparked in the corridors of our workplace. He was in sales and I in illustrations. Our love story culminated in marriage when I was 26. Once we settled into our routine, he made the bold move of resigning from his job, proposing the idea of launching a new venture together. Uncertain, I sought counsel from our trusted business partner, Bob, with whom we shared past collaborations. Bob, a seasoned CEO known for his diverse business ventures and adeptness in advertising, readily lent his support. Bob backed our endeavor and even contributed funds. I recounted. Karen's illustrations have always impressed me, Bob remarked, his praise leaving me humbled. With gratitude, we vow to steer our company to triumph. Just the two of us, I affirmed to Bob as we embarked on our entrepreneurial journey. Initially, we grappled with the constraints of a cramped apartment. However, with the ascent of our company, we upgraded to a sleek high-rise condominium. It was then that my husband broached the idea of me focusing solely on homemaking. I'll hire someone else for the illustrations. Eventually, I need your full support, he asserted, his words leaving me torn. Reluctantly, I confided in Bob, our steadfast investor. I regret to inform you, but I must step away from illustration work, I disclosed to Bob. His empathy was palpable. It pains me to think I won't have the pleasure of witnessing Karen's illustrations anymore. Yet if you ever decide to return to it, just say the word. I'll stand by you, Bob reassured me. Thank you, truly, I expressed my gratitude. And thus, I embraced the role of homemaker to bolster my husband's aspirations. However, my passion for drawing persisted, finding solace in sharing my illustrations on Instagram. The unexpected warmth of response has become my clandestine delight. As my husband's business flourished, our lifestyle mirrored its success. His investments yielded opulent returns, evident in the acquisition of a new car and bespoke suits from prestigious labels. While I deemed these indulgences excessive, I recognized their significance in his role as the company's figurehead. Despite his demanding schedule, he remained steadfast in our tradition of sharing dinner at home. It was a solemn pact, a sanctuary carved out for just the two of us amidst the chaos. Over these meals, he divulged the company's forthcoming ventures, a privilege that filled me with contentment. Supporting his ambitions became my source of joy. I once believed our harmonious routine would endure indefinitely. Despite the company's continued prosperity, subtle shifts began to emerge in my husband's demeanor. Gone were the animated discussions about business during our dinners. "How's everything at the company?" I inquired, met with lukewarm responses. "Everything's fine," he'd mutter, his enthusiasm conspicuously absent. Persistently, I probed for more details, only to be met with terse rebuttals. "Don't pry, you wouldn't understand. You're always here. I shouldn't have to explain every little detail." His words pierced through me, a stark departure from the understanding and camaraderie we once shared. I attempted to rationalize his behavior as fatigue or stress, but that night, as he silently retreated to our room after dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in. This pattern persisted, with my husband increasingly opting for dinners away from home. Feeble justifications of social obligations or client meetings replaced our once sacred mealtime together. Despite my waiting patiently, delaying my own dinner, his absence grew routine, his excuses dwindling to nothingness. Confrontation only invited his wrath, a stark departure from the partner I once knew. I felt reduced to a mere servant in my own home, the weight of his indifference crushing me to tears. We once weathered the storms of entrepreneurship together, hand in hand. Now, I found myself relegated beneath even his employees, my sacrifices met with scorn rather than appreciation. My domestic duties weren't born out of a passion for homemaking. They were a testament to my unwavering commitment to his aspirations. Yet any semblance of gratitude had long since vanished from his eyes. In his absence, I find solace in my illustrations, a sanctuary where stress dissipates and creativity flourishes. With each stroke, my online following burgeons, their supportive comments a balm to my weary soul. Among them, a familiar name emerges, Bob's. Bob extends an offer to collaborate again. A glimmer of hope, I muse, buoyed by the prospect. Without this beacon, I might have succumbed to despair. As our shared dinners faded into memory, a palpable chasm widened between my husband and me. Suspicion crept in, fueled by the faint scent of perfume lingering on his abandoned suit jacket, a fragrance foreign to him. When confronted, he flippantly dismissed it as a triviality, a smirk playing on his lips. His nonchalance stoked the embers of my long-suppressed sorrow, igniting them into a fiery rage. Enough with the charade, I resolved. Left alone in the confines of our home, relegated to mundane chores, the gnawing fear of societal abandonment gnawed at my sanity with each passing day. My friends could only offer envy, while my parents dismissed my concerns as trivial luxuries. Left to grapple with my turmoil alone, I bore the weight of my suspicions in solitude. Then, one fateful evening, my husband returned home inebriated. Amidst my desperate efforts to tend to him, A damning discovery awaited, a crimson imprint adorning his shirt collar. Its presence could not be dismissed as innocent, a glaring testament to another woman's trespass. In that moment, I unearthed undeniable evidence of my husband's betrayal. With resolve coursing through my veins, I confronted him the following day, brandishing the damning garment. "Where were you last night, and what is this?" I demanded, pointing to the incriminating mark. Though caught off guard by the lipstick stain, my husband remained eerily composed in the face of my accusation. "I was out with friends at a bar. Must have happened then, right? You'd need to take off your jacket for that. Didn't you notice?" he retorted, his words laced with defiance. Unconvinced by his feeble alibi, I responded, "I don't recall." With a sudden motion, my husband rose from his seat, his hand connecting with my cheek in a searing slap. Stunned, I stumbled backward, reeling from the unexpected blow, the sting of pain radiating across my skin. "When will you understand? Who do you think is providing for us?" he spat before retreating to his sanctuary. I watched his departure, tears tracing silent paths down my cheeks. In that moment, the truth struck with brutal clarity. My husband's love had waned, leaving behind a cavernous void. I was left shattered by the cold reality of our fractured relationship. From that day forth, my husband's temper became increasingly volatile. His displeasure manifested in violent outbursts, whether it be at a meal I had prepared or any perceived infraction. The once tender moments of our marriage were now eclipsed by a shadow of fear and uncertainty. "This tastes atrocious. Do you even pay attention to what I eat? If you want to keep being my wife, you better sharpen your culinary skills," my husband berated before storming out of the room. "I'll dine out. Eating this would sabotage my productivity," he declared. I trailed after him, desperation evident in my voice. "Please wait. I want to prepare meals you enjoy. But you're never home or communicate with me. How can I cater to your tastes like that?" My husband clicked his tongue in irritation at my plea. "Should we just divorce then? I'm fine with it. I can manage without you, but can you survive without me?" he sneered, his gaze piercing through me. "You're nothing but a leech, living off my earnings," he spat, his words a venomous assault. In that moment, a realization dawned upon me. This man was beyond redemption. The compassionate husband I once knew was a relic of the past. "Then I'll find a job," I declared. "What? What's gotten into you?" My husband's voice echoed with incredulity. "I'll strive for financial independence too," I affirmed. My husband erupted into laughter, doubling over. "Who would you consider hiring someone as powerless as you?" he taunted. Suppressing my rising fury, I maintained composure. Reacting with anger would only escalate the abuse. If I couldn't win through strength, I needed to strategize differently. "Fine, do as you wish, but don't neglect your household duties. With your meager earnings, I won't tolerate a neglected home," my husband dismissed, exiting our dwelling. Swiftly taking action, I enlisted the services of a detective to uncover evidence of my husband's infidelity. The findings were damning, a trove of incriminating photographs capturing my husband's dalliances with extravagantly dressed women, reveling in drinks and discreet hotel entrances. It was a mosaic of betrayal, with not just one, but several women ensnared in his web of deceit. Yet as I surveyed the evidence and listened to the detective's report, a peculiar calm washed over me. There was no rage, no sorrow, only a pragmatic acknowledgement of the situation. The ostentatious behavior that had once irked me now served as a conduit for undeniable proof. 1 week later, adorned in my finest attire, I ascended to a restaurant atop a luxurious hotel. Despite my efforts, I felt out of place amidst the opulent clientele. With a hesitant step, I approached a reserved table, where Bob awaited. "My apologies for the delay," I offered, but Bob's warm smile assuaged my apprehension as he motioned for me to take a seat. "Karen, no need for apologies. I've been eagerly anticipating our meeting. Your presence is worth the wait," Bob reassured, casting aside any notion of inconvenience. Bob had played a pivotal role in our journey to independence, generously backing us financially when my husband and I decided to venture out on our own. Now, he held a prominent position as the president of my husband's parent company. "I'm immensely grateful for your unwavering support during our leap to independence. Your confidence in us meant the world." I expressed my gratitude. Bob chuckled warmly. It was a no-brainer for me. "After all, our history together made it an easy decision," he replied. "It's evident the company is thriving under your guidance," I observed. A hint of seriousness crossed Bob's features at my remark. Yes, it's progressing well, but today our focus is on your acceptance of my invitation, correct? He redirected, his smile returning to reassure me. Yes, indeed, I affirmed, straightening in my seat and extending a warm greeting. Reflecting on our past interactions, I recalled Bob's genuine admiration for my illustrations. He had been instrumental in providing funding for our venture into independence, recognizing the value I brought to the table. Moreover, he had been the lone voice cautioning against the path of becoming a homemaker. Though we had lost touch, Bob's reemergence in my life through social media rekindled our connection, leading to regular exchanges via email and text messages. You always had a keen understanding of my illustrations, didn't you? I remarked. I've been a fan of your work for quite some time. I'm thrilled you never gave up on illustrating. Your decision to reach out to me caught me off guard, though, Bob confessed. Bob had extended offers for me to join his team as an illustrator on multiple occasions, but my domestic responsibilities had always stood in the way. However, after much contemplation, I had recently made the decision to accept his proposal. In a recent conversation with my husband, Bob had seemed hesitant yet determined, and now, as he locked eyes with me, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Bob's words hit me like a bolt from the blue. Michael's company has garnered quite a negative reputation, he divulged. What? That's surprising. Michael always spoke so highly of his job. I never imagined this, I mused, taken aback by the revelation. I've been closely involved for a while now, but as the company expanded, the quality of their work took a nosedive. Missed deadlines, errors, and he seems oblivious to it all. Bob lamented. Is this reputation widespread? I inquired, a knot forming in my stomach. The company's rapid growth initially attracted positive attention. However, it's now under scrutiny for all the wrong reasons. There are even whispers of unsavory affiliations, Bob disclosed, his tone tinged with concern. I had no idea. I've been so out of touch with Michael's professional life, I realized, a pang of unease settling in. To lighten the mood, Bob chimed in cheerfully, You'll be creating illustrations for us from now on. No need to outsource anymore. It's a significant asset for our company. I appreciate your understanding and flexibility regarding my family commitments. I express my gratitude. No worries at all. We believe in maintaining a healthy work-life balance for our employees, Bob reassured with a smile. And so, I embarked on my journey working for Bob. With my sole focus on illustration tasks, there was no need for me to commute to the office. Bob graciously granted me the opportunity to work remotely, allowing me to seamlessly juggle my household responsibilities. The sheer joy of creating art, once confined to a hobby, now bloomed into a fulfilling profession. However, amidst the satisfaction of my work, I couldn't shake the longing to have more control over my time, to pursue my passion without constraints imposed by domestic duties and supporting my husband. With my newfound income, I believed I could sustain myself independently. However, as I diligently worked, one day, the abrupt sound of the door slamming jolted me from my concentration. Rushing to the hallway, I was met with my husband's furious gaze. You traitor, he seethed. Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to comprehend his sudden outburst. To think my own wife would snatch away my job, he spat. In that moment, realization dawned upon me. My husband's ire stemmed from my collaboration with Bob, which had opened doors to additional contracts with companies affiliated with his own. This was my retaliation, my way of reclaiming power from the one who had belittled me. But irony must have been galling for him, to have his livelihood threatened by the very person he had scorned. You have no authority to dictate my actions. I'm simply carrying out my duties with your explicit consent, I asserted, holding my ground as my husband's anger simmered. If you feel compelled, go ahead and strike me. I won't hesitate to involve the authorities, I declared, unyielding in the face of his aggression. My company's downfall is on your hands. What exactly are you trying to achieve? He accused, his frustration palpable. This has nothing to do with me, I rebutted, resolute in my stance. Retrieving the divorce papers from the adjoining room, I handed them to my husband with a steady hand. We're no longer bound by matrimony. Let's not prolong this any further, I stated firmly, severing the ties that bound us together. You're divorcing me over my company's struggles. You're just after my money, aren't you? I retorted, stung by his accusation. I could have ended this marriage whenever I please, but I chose to wait. Now that I'm successful and earning, suddenly it's convenient for you to walk away. Wait a moment. Let's discuss the future of the company first before we rush into divorce. We founded it together, remember? You're the one who ousted me from that company, my husband interjected, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. I severed all ties with that company, and I intend to seek proper compensation, I asserted firmly, unyielding in my resolve. Michael's frustration was evident, his agitation palpable as he gnawed on his lip in vexation. How shameless can you be? You have no right to talk about compensation when you're the one initiating the divorce. Do you even realize how many times you've hurt me and your affairs? I had undeniable proof, I retorted, brandishing the incriminating photographs. As he beheld the evidence of his infidelity, my husband's facade crumbled, and he sank to his knees, pleading with desperation. Please, I beg of you. The company's on the brink of collapse. I can't handle the added burden of compensation or a divorce. I need your support now more than ever. Everyone has abandoned me the moment they caught wind of our troubles. You're the only one left, he implored, his voice quivering with raw vulnerability. I dismissed his desperate plea as utterly futile. Gathering only my essentials and work materials, I departed from the house without a backward glance. My return home only occurred once the divorce proceedings were concluded, solely to retrieve my belongings. By then, my husband's company was hemorrhaging mistakes, and he found himself deserted by all. Reduced to pleading for funds to compensate me, he spent his days in a pitiful state. In stark contrast, I embraced solitude, forging a livelihood through my beloved craft of illustration. With each stroke of the pen, I accumulated wealth, all while upholding my integrity, a stark contrast to my ex-husband's downfall.
My ex-husband and his family, who used to be nice, turned out to be different than I thought. It all started when they learned I inherited money from my ancestors. Dealing with their changed behavior was tough, even though I knew that money could change people. This eventually led to our divorce, and now I have no connection with my in-laws. Apparently, their household is still chaotic. A few years ago, my aunt, who worked hard and invested wisely, passed away. Although I didn't pay much attention to her wealth initially, my mother once mentioned that my aunt had substantial assets. Despite her financial stability, my aunt was frugal. She cooked her own meals, shopped at regular supermarkets, and preferred quality over quantity when it came to clothing. I always admired and loved her values. Back in her time, it was common for men to work outside, while women took care of the home. Despite earning more than many men, my aunt faced criticism for breaking this norm. She was unmarried, without children, and lived life on her own terms. People saw her as different, but she didn't let it bother her. In fact, she had an attitude of let them say what they want and remained confident. One day, while we were casually sipping tea on the sofa, she surprised me by saying, "If something happens to me, I want you to inherit my estate." Startled by her sudden statement, I asked her to explain. She said, "I'm not married, and I don't have children. So who else should inherit my assets but someone who has faced belittlement and judgment from those around me? I don't want them getting my money. I still need to prepare the inheritance documents, but I want to clearly state that you are the heir," she said with a smile, but in a serious tone. When she shared this with me, I didn't question it and simply agreed. I thought, if that's what my aunt wanted, she had the right to decide. At that time, she was only in her 40s, and the actual day of inheritance seemed so distant, probably 30 or 40 years away. Being still in high school, I had little understanding of inheritance or estates. Honestly, I considered her statement as a joke. Years passed. I got married, had children, and got caught up in the business of life. It was during this time that my mother informed me about my aunt's declining health. Panicking, I rushed to the hospital where she was supposed to be admitted. On reaching there, my seemingly energetic aunt greeted me, dismissing the notion that she wasn't feeling well. She assured me it was just a routine checkup and that I shouldn't worry. Reassured by her usual smile, I thought everything was fine. However, unbeknownst to me, her health was deteriorating, and her frequent hospitalizations indicated the severity of her condition. Each time she was admitted, I'd bring my children along to visit. With each passing day, I noticed her cheeks hollowing, her arms and neck becoming thin, and her overall strength visibly diminishing. Despite her frailty, she always greeted me with a smile, portraying immense strength. It was the same smile I had known since childhood. I held on to hope for her recovery, but sadly, she eventually passed away. The funeral was an intimate gathering of close family, and I couldn't help but feel regret. I wished I had visited more frequently or adjusted our schedules to create more shared memories. I knew, though, that regretting it afterward was futile. My children, who adored my aunt, also felt the sense of loss. Witnessing their sorrow and regret for not spending more time with her added to my own pain. In the midst of grieving, I received an A4-sized brown envelope at my doorstep. Glancing at the sender, I saw it was from a lawyer's office. Confused, I wondered why they would send me something when I had no memory of involving a lawyer. I hadn't been aware of any legal matters or crimes. I cautiously opened the envelope and examined its contents. It contained details related to my aunt's inheritance, making me realize that her statement from long ago wasn't a joke, and I needed to verify the information. I reached out to the lawyer's office, and during the conversation, I discovered that my aunt and the lawyer were old friends who had maintained contact. The lawyer had been entrusted with handling matters regarding her estate and inheritance after her passing. When the lawyer revealed the total amount of my aunt's estate, I was taken aback. I had anticipated a few million at most, but it exceeded 200 million. Confused by this substantial sum, I contacted my mother. After discussing with the lawyer, she shared surprising news, saying, "It seems you yourself agreed to be your sister's heir." She asked me about it after your high school graduation, and I told her that it was acceptable if that's what you both decided. Her response caught me off guard, but my mother remained optimistic. Despite my unease about managing such a large amount of money, my mother suggested, "Your sister went through the trouble of leaving the documents for you, so why not accept it gratefully?" She casually added, "She left all the documents for you, so you should take them gratefully." When I questioned if she didn't want to inherit the property, she explained, "Inheritances can often lead to family disputes. A long time ago, one of my grandmother's brothers passed away without a will, causing daily fights among the siblings and their children over the inheritance. Your sister, however, left a document stating that you would inherit the estate, so it wouldn't be right for me to claim it. Just be cautious with your in-laws and husband." She shared a cautionary tale, remembering the past. Despite my assurance that my husband wouldn't be concerned, little did I know that this would later become a reality. A few days later, my ex-husband, displaying some unease, inquired, "Is that document from the lawyer about the estate?" Although I was puzzled about how he knew, I saw no reason to conceal it. Upon my honest admission, his eyes lit up, and he probed about the inherited amount. A sense of foreboding crept over me. Attempting to divert his interest, I casually mentioned it was around $7 million, but his smug expression hinted he sensed a different figure. Despite my attempts to dismiss his suspicions, he persistently urged a more thorough check. Initially brushing him off nonchalantly, I eventually grew annoyed, stating firmly, "I've already told you it's $7 million. Why you keep asking?" His vague response, "I just have a feeling there might be more," left me frustrated, and I insisted that we put an end to the discussion. Strangely, from the next day onward, his demeanor changed, and he began ignoring me. Experiencing this unfamiliar treatment surprised me. Driven by pride, neither of us initiated conversation, and 2 months passed in silence. During this period, my former in-laws, usually considerate in notifying us before visiting, abruptly appeared at our home. Their unannounced arrival sparked concern, making me wonder if something serious had occurred. They greeted me, saying, "We heard about your recent inheritance from your aunt, and is over $100 million, right? Our house is getting old, and we've been considering renovations. We're proud of our son for marrying someone like you. How about we expand the house and add a room for you too? It's a great opportunity. Think about living together." My ex-father-in-law shared this proposal while my ex-mother-in-law nodded with a smile. I was taken aback, not only because my ex-husband knew the exact inheritance amount, but also at the audacity of my in-laws suggesting the use of that money for their home improvements. Despite my shock, they enthusiastically discussed plans, including an island kitchen and making the house more accessible. Unable to tolerate it any longer, I intervened, saying, "Please don't make decisions without consulting me." They even mentioned having already obtained a cost estimate, clearly counting on my inheritance, and seemed oblivious to any wrongdoing. Overwhelmed, I had many things I wanted to express, but wanting to avoid emotional confrontation, I simply asked them to leave for the day. Later that evening, I confronted my husband upon his return from work. Initially evasive, he eventually admitted to snooping into my bank book. The inheritance details were typically stored deep inside my dresser, indicating he thoroughly searched the room. His level of obsession disappointed me. I recounted the day's events with his parents, expressing my frustration. Unexpectedly, he argued, "We're a couple, so the money you inherit becomes joint property. The inheritance is also mine, and using it for my parents' house renovation is only natural. You're in the wrong for hiding the actual amount." Despite my ex-husband persistently defending his parents' actions, insisting I was at fault, it was clear that their behavior was unacceptable. Adding to the shock, he casually revealed in the conversation that he had quit his job. Confused, I questioned, "Hold on, what do you mean by that? If we're so well off, can't I live without working? With financial comfort, why endure a stressful job? It's a waste of time. If we live off your money, we can have a stress-free and peaceful life, enjoying our time. Renovating my parents' house would even boost your status as the son's wife. It's all beneficial. Why be so upset when there are only advantages?" He expressed this with a frustrated look, leaving me feeling hopeless. While I expressed my willingness for the renovation, I clarified that I wasn't planning to fund it. This infuriated my ex-husband once again. The plans are already in motion. I remained indifferent, ignoring his continued ranting. The next day, he returned with his parents, complaining that the situation had changed. I retorted, "Changed? You made decisions without consulting me in the first place. Even if I had agreed, why would I fund it? This money isn't for renovating your parents' house, nor is it for supporting a son who quit his job without discussion. After all our kindness, and you, being wealthy yet so miserly, have some nerve." Disillusioned, I realized their true nature and informed them I had nothing more to discuss, asking them to leave. Upon hearing my straightforward reply, "I mean exactly what I said," my ex-husband began to panic. Inquiring if I was suggesting a divorce, I calmly informed him that we would discuss it with a lawyer and then ushered them away. Later, I packed my belongings and sought refuge in a business hotel. Despite my ex-husband persistently expressing his refusal to accept a divorce and professing his love for me, I responded by stating that his affection was likely for my money, not me, and proceeded to turn off my phone. The following day, I visited my parents and shared the unfolding events. They were disappointed but not surprised. When asked about my future plans, I revealed my consideration of divorce. My mother advised me to stand firm, sensing his reluctance to let go. They also suggested investigating if he had committed other wrongdoings. Following their advice, I hired a detective agency, discovering his frequent visits to nightlife establishments for questionable reasons. This revelation solidified my determination to pursue a divorce. Seeking legal assistance from a knowledgeable divorce lawyer, I formally requested a divorce from my then-husband, who vehemently rejected the idea. Not only did he refuse, but he also demanded compensation and the division of assets if I wanted a divorce. When the lawyer clarified that the inheritance from my relatives did not qualify as marital assets and was not subject to property division, my ex-husband argued against it. The lawyer posed a scenario. If his parents were to pass away, would he willingly hand over the inherited assets to his wife, claiming it as family money? He fell silent in response. Despite further lectures on the unreasonableness of his actions, my ex-husband, with tears in his eyes, pleaded for me to cover the renovation costs. Naturally, that was not an option, and he appeared utterly dejected. Later, I learned that the renovation had already been completed, assuming I would foot the bill, as he had arranged it in his name. Furthermore, the detailed renovation unexpectedly surpassed a total of 7 million yen. It appeared that his reluctance to agree to a divorce was rooted in his inability to meet these payments. I consistently maintained that regardless of our marital status, there was no justification for me to fund the renovation of his parents' home. Despite my firm stance, he'd audaciously attempted to negotiate, proposing that I cover half of the costs. However, he'd abandoned this pursuit when my lawyer threatened to sue him for extortion. Yet, not entirely conceding defeat, my ex-husband's parents even appeared at my family's house. In the end, my father had to intervene physically. The confrontation escalated, resulting in damage to a potted plant at the entrance, prompting us to call the police. When the police arrived to hear our side of the story, they became violent and were subsequently arrested. Naturally, the entire neighborhood became aware of this incident, and the gossip continued even after their release. Considering these tumultuous events, I openly shared the story with some neighbors who enjoyed gossip. Consequently, the audacity of my ex-husband's family became widely known throughout the neighborhood. Eventually, we finalized the divorce. However, even after the legal separation, I continued to receive messages from him expressing love and a desire to start over. In response, I obtained a restraining order through my lawyer. Recognizing the temporary nature of restraining orders, lasting at most 6 months, and given my ex-husband's apparent disregard for such legal measures, I decided to relocate with my parents to avoid potential retaliation. While I felt guilty about uprooting my parents from their familiar surroundings due to my circumstances, considering the various dangers and challenges we faced, moving seemed to be the only viable option. Consequently, we made the move discreetly, akin to fleeing in the night. Once things settled down, I informed my children about the decision. Although they were understandably shocked, they all empathized with my situation, acknowledging that under the circumstances, there was little else we could do. Life continued without major issues, but my ominous feelings proved accurate. Despite the restraining order, my ex-husband was found lingering near my former family home. A vigilant police officer, sensing something amiss, questioned him and discovered a small knife in his pocket, leading to his arrest. When my lawyer informed me about this development, including my ex's desire to talk, a chill ran down my spine. I shuddered to think of the potential danger if I hadn't moved away, naively relying on the restraining order for protection. Ultimately, my ex-husband was released sooner than anticipated since no one was harmed. However, the fear of returning to the area where my family home once stood lingers. For a brief period, I lost track of my ex, but a friend living near his family home provided updates. Following the renovation, heated arguments about finances became a daily occurrence. Phrases like, "You took out the loan in your name, so it's your responsibility," or "This house belongs to our parents, so they should cover the expenses," resonated loudly, making the nature of the conversations evident. Beyond verbal disputes, the sounds of objects being broken could be heard despite the recent renovation. The police were occasionally called to intervene, cautioning the family. There were also occasional remarks blaming me for the divorce or accusing others of supporting it. Before the inheritance issue, we had a decent relationship, and the bond between my ex and his father was strong. Witnessing how money could destroy these connections saddened me. Reflecting on my mother's words that money can change people, I now understand the truth behind that statement. Additionally, it appears that my ex-mother-in-law is urging my ex to find a job already, and his retort, "Shut up," is audible. It seems he still hasn't found employment, which might be challenging given his age. Due to my open sharing of the story, the neighbors are aware of our messy divorce. Consequently, nobody approaches the ex's family, fearing requests for money. Some even believe that going near their house could bring bad luck. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard this rumor. Currently, I reside in a moderately spacious rental apartment with my parents, despite their constant encouragement to prioritize myself. The thought of remarriage doesn't even cross my mind. I've decided to spend the rest of my life with my parents. The fear lingers that if a potential partner discovers the inheritance, they might undergo a transformation similar to my ex-husband. Additionally, since I never had many hobbies or extravagant spending habits, I plan to maintain my usual lifestyle. I envision utilizing this inheritance for the well-being of my parents and myself in the future, especially if there's a need for special care in our old age or to celebrate significant milestones like my children's weddings or the arrival of grandchildren. Honestly, it's a substantial amount that won't deplete with casual spending. This money is a precious legacy from my admired aunt, and I intend to handle it with the same care she did. Lately, while working part-time, I've delved into learning about investments and financial management. It's proven to be a challenging endeavor, deepening my respect for my aunt, who skillfully managed it for many years. Although we lead content lives, occasional updates reach me about the challenging situation my ex-husband and his family are facing. However, since we are divorced, they are now strangers. Regardless of their struggles, I hope they navigate through them without involving others.